So my big question about the Transfiguration story this year, 20 odd years into preaching about Transfiguration, first time came to me. This is the question. It's very holy. How did Peter know it was Moses and Elijah? Were there pictures? No. Engravings? I doubt it. This is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years after these two guys walked the earth. How did he know? Jesus, Lord, I'll make a tent for you, and one for Moses, and one for Elijah. Were there introductions? I just had this imagination of like a beam of light, like on Star Trek, and Moses, and he goes, hey, I'm Moses, right? And then Elijah is like, Elijah. Like, how did they know? They come with signs. Maybe there was theological things they had in their hands, or Elijah's chariot was behind them, filled with fiery wheels, or Moses had the tablets, maybe? I don't know. It's a good one to think about. It means nothing to us. But it's a great question. How did he know? It was Moses and Elijah, except maybe theologically we know they're the only two who might have come back. Well, Elijah always was meant to come back on a mountain, right? That people left a chair for the prophet Elijah at their dinner tables, right? In ancient times. So if somebody appears out of the blue, maybe it's always Elijah. And then when the second guy shows up, Moses? Yes, I'm Moses. Oh, good. We're all here. I could have just stopped with that. I'm so interested in it. That and the whole Superman thing. Anyway. In this story, we understand that Peter is wound up tight. Like, Peter is wound up tight. I get the sense that Peter, the big fisherman, was kind of wound up tight anyway. A bit anxious, a bit of a worrier. He's us. He's 21st century North Americans, holding a lot of anxiety, holding a lot of useless fears, borrowing worry from tomorrow, as my lovely wife would say. He's wound up tight, he's worried, he's anxious, and he's afraid. Because in the episode that precedes this, that we did not read, it's this famous passage where Jesus says that he will be killed, that he's going to be murdered at the hands of the Romans, the Pharisees. And Peter says, no, this can't happen, Lord. And Jesus says, the famous words, get behind me, Satan. He rebukes him, for you are thinking of only the things of the earth and not things of the Spirit. That's what happens just before this. Jesus has said, I am going to be murdered. Well, that had sent a guy like Peter right over the moon. I mean, he was just flapping inside. And then Jesus goes on, and we connect to the conversation as it came to us today. Just follows right from that same conversation about generations passing and the coming again, and all this kind of stuff. And you will have to suffer with me, he says. Wow, Peter's just apoplectic. So Jesus knows that they got to go up. They got to get out. So he takes Peter and the sons of Zebedee, the sons of thunder, James and John, and they go up a mountain together. I always thought this was very convenient. There's always a mountain near Jesus, right? Like wherever he goes is a mountain. It's because there's a lot of scriptures. And he returned, he went up the mountain, or he sat on the mountain and taught, or, so there's a mountain, and they go up it, and then, there's more life-shattering activity. As if Peter going with Jesus up the mountain was going to be peaceful and a time of spiritual retreat. No. It's a time of life-shattering activity. Peter, Jesus, we talked about with the kids, the face shines, the garments are whiter than white, and like I'm looking at the blinding light out there right now from the snow, it's whiter than that, and they can barely see anything, and then Moses, Elijah appear, and Peter says that he wants to build tents or booths for them, for each of the three holy men, one for you, one Lord, one for Elijah, one for Moses. Tents, booths, yurts, we could call them, movable tents that had platforms maybe. Tents were how the holy was kept during the wilderness wanderings of the Israelite people, the Hebrew people in the wilderness 40 years. Tents were where they kept the Ark of the Covenant. It's where they kept the presence of the Lord, and they carried the Lord through the wilderness with them. Tents were how you honored the holy. Tents were how you kept the holy close, but not too close. Because you couldn't just present yourself straight on to the holy. You couldn't touch the Ark of the Covenant, only certain people. Or you get burned, blinded, turned to stone, whatever. There's a lot of stories. You've seen Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, you wanted to keep God with you close, but not too close. So tents became like the oven mitts, the conductors of the holy. And in some ways, tents were how you contained the holy. Kept it a bit more neat and tidy than the holy normally is. It's not a conscious mistake that Peter makes suggesting this. He's just being a good, holy Jew. This doesn't happen every day. The holy didn't just appear to people all the time and Peter knew exactly what to do when that happens. This is something that didn't happen every generation. So here it is. The great prophets and the Lord is shining bright. And Peter's, acting with his heart. Well, let's build booths. That's what you do. You build a tent for the holy when you're in the wilderness up a mountain. It's the greatest tradition of his people. It's not like it happened every day. But it's not what Jesus wanted or required. And in fact, right in the middle of the offer of graciousness, of hospitality for the holy that Peter offers, God interrupts with a bright, shiny cloud. A shiny cloud. Not a dark cloud like on Sinai. A shiny cloud. And the Lord says those famous words, "This is my Son, the beloved. With him I am well pleased. Listen to him." And all of a sudden, a holiness happens, an activity happens that no tent could contain. Well, it was life-changing and out of Peter's control. Absolutely out of control. Something new was happening, and it could not be contained. So that got me thinking, big changes on Transfiguration Sunday, about stuff that I've just spent the last 2 days talking about with Reverend John and Reverend Stephen, 2 keen students of the United Church of Canada, and I was teaching them governance, church governance, for the last 2 days. I kind of made it exciting. I think we made it exciting. Church polity, the manual. But it reminded me that the council knows about some of this stuff, but most of you don't know that on January 1st, the United Church of Canada changed more change than had ever happened since 1925 when it became the United Church of Canada. More change than ever before happened all at once on January 1st, because you've got to pick a date. It's hard to kind of blend into this kind of stuff. So I just thought I'd give you a little list of what's happened to the United Church of Canada. We moved from having churches, a presbytery, which was a gathering of congregation, and then a conference, which was a gathering of presbyteries, and then general council, which is a gathering of everybody. We moved from 4 to 3. We don't have presbyteries. We don't have conferences anymore. We have communities of faith, like Mayfair, and we have regions. Ours is called, at the moment, Region 4. Region number 4. We're getting a new name, don't worry. They're voting on it right now. Region 4 is what we're called right now, and we're the only region that got to stay the same geographically. We're still shaped like a casserole, like the province of Saskatchewan. Okay? So Saskatchewan Conference, that shape has become Region 4. But it's not conference, and it's not a presbytery. It's a new bird that's a mix of both. If that wasn't enough, we've gotten rid of some stuff, like the joint needs assessment process, which we just had a team spend 19 meetings on. What? We could have waited a little longer? Got rid of the joint needs assessment process and what we called the joint search process. We got a whole new way of ministers and congregations to find each other. Get this, churches will create self-assessments. Once a year, we'll have a meeting or a retreat of the council or congregation. We'll talk about who we are and what we want to do, and then we'll put that online at something called the Church Hub. And it won't become public until we say we need a minister. And then the green light will come on and everybody will be able to see it online. And then ministers, meanwhile, are going to be doing their own ministry profile and self-assessment. And they're going to talk about what they're good at, what their skills are like, where they would like to live in the world, all that kind of stuff. And that'll go on the Church Hub, and it won't be seen by everybody until they want to find a church. Green light goes on, and then the Church Hub intuitively starts to put people together. They'll say to church congregations, hey, you should take a look at these 5 people. Could be John Rowe, you never know. Look at these 5 ministers. They match with the skills that you've said you'd like. And that minister, hey minister, you should look at Mayfair United Church and 4 other congregations because they said they need the skills that you have. And that's just a beginning. But it's just a way to start to piece people together in a way that we don't normally do. It does a couple things. It breaks down the old boys club of shoulder tapping. If you're a minister and you know lots of other cool churches and blah, 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 and you're in with the crowd, then you get called lots. Right? That breaks that down. It also helps intercultural ministers who may not be reached, congregations may not reach out to them right away. Their names will be there. People get to see the skills first and they get matched that way. There's lots of positives, but I got to tell you, it's a lot of change. It's a transfiguration in the way that we do things, and people are pushing against it. Ministers don't like to be told what to do. You have to have your profile on the church hub. Daryl, did you write yours yet? No, he's looking at retirement in a bunch of years. He's like, I'm good. You never know. Grace West might turn on you. Yeah, it's always, these people give you that look every so often. We got to get our profiles on the church hub. It's mandatory, but it doesn't say, they didn't use the word mandatory in the manual, but they said some other words that kind of really mean mandatory. Very cute. And churches have to have a profile on there. And we just will freshen it up year after year. We're way ahead because the JNAC team did a whole bunch of work for us. We did surveys. We'll just put all that together and make a nice profile. Nobody likes the mandatory stuff in the United Church of Canada. And then, get this, it used to be that when the minister there was an issue, there was a problem, that their colleagues would come and review them. It was not fun. And it caused a whole bunch of strain between ministers and tension in presbyteries. Now we have a whole group called the Office of Vocation, like a college of ministers. The Office of Vocation in Toronto, run by the big national church, the General Council. And when there's a problem with the minister, there's going to be like a 1-800, I got a problem with my minister. 1-800, Dave's a jerk. And then you make the call. And then, hello, this is the Office of Vocation. Oh man, you got to get a load of this guy. And they say, we're sending somebody right away, and there'll be a review, or a formal hearing, or some sort of conflict resolution, or all that kind of stuff that presbyteries used to do, but it caused too much tension and competition and upset in our collegial body. And so this Office of Vocation will do that heavy lifting for us, and more than that, they will send skilled, trained conflict people, which used to be just kind of you ran on the skills of the person you had. That's just a taste of some of the changes. There's a whole new financial assessment stuff. We can't go on and on and on. But let me tell you, we've shaken up a lot of the tents that we used to love to build. The ways that we express the life of the Spirit through our governance structures have been blown over. You ever lose a tent in a windstorm? It's not pretty. That's the United Church of Canada right now. We're flying the plane while building it, some of us would say. We're 30,000 feet up without walls, but we've got propellers. That's the church. Right now, it's making a whole lot of people uncomfortable. And the temptation would be to do what Peter said. Act with our hearts, act out of tradition, act just out of what we know in our subconscious and our conscious life. Could we just build a tent and go back to what we know, please? But the decision we need to make in the church, transfiguration, calls us to decide, do we want to be beloved of God or do we want to be tent makers? Beloved of God, with whom we are well, God is well pleased, or do we want to be tent makers? Agents of change, shining bright like the sun, or tent builders? That's the decision. Oh, I just can't let what's happening in Canada go past today. This week, it's just too hot. Have you been watching? You've been watching? Something happened in the government. The tent builders are being challenged. And they'd love to keep building a tent that can cover it all up. But they've bumped into a woman who likes to live in a big house, not a tent. And things are shaky. Things are shaky. And they'll keep trying to build tents, because that's all they know. And the woman will keep saying, but what about what I learned in the big house? Somehow we'll find a way, maybe transfiguration. But it's not just about United Church changes. It's not just about the government and what's going on, and it's a hoot and penny, let me tell you. Curling or the news? I don't know which one to pick these days. It's not just about the United Church. It's not just about government. It's about Mayfair United Church. Transfiguration is a story about us right here at Mayfair because we are in a great time of slow transition. Slow transition. We had a minister leave. It kind of shook us up. We got a minister who's been hanging around almost 17 years. We got to thinking. We did surveys. We had a joint needs assessment process. We're thinking big things at Mayfair. And the temptation would be to build tents. The temptation would be to contain that nervous energy, the fears, the stuff that makes us uncomfortable, and try and contain it in a little beautiful tent. Because that's what we know. We know how to do that. But God is calling us to something more. It's a hinge time for us on this hinge Sunday when we move from Transfiguration into Lent. We're very tempted to keep building the same tents over and over again. What could help us move past that? Maybe a change in how we're seen. I'm very moved by the scene where Jesus touches the disciples. They bow down to the ground. The voice comes and they're terrified. Happens in the Bible a lot. They're terrified and they're down on the ground like this. And Jesus just comes and touches them. It says, get up, don't fear. Don't fear, get up. That's the church. We're often caught with our eyes down. Our eyes inward. We're not looking in the right direction. So maybe we need to change the lens, change the direction of our view. We could look outward, maybe upward, but for sure outward, into the world, away from our own specific concerns as a congregation. We look out to the world and see where we can serve. And friends, what can help us is partnership, 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 partnership. The salvation and transfiguration of Mayfair United Church and the Christian Church in Canada will be when we join in partnership with others. Partnerships with other churches. Hey, what's going on at Grace Westminster? Maybe we could join them in that. You know? I heard their minister is a pretty cool guy. You know, maybe they got some program we can help with. We're not going to show up at worship. Let's not get carried away here. We're not going to amalgamate. That's just too scary. Build a tent quick. But maybe we can join each other in a partnership. Maybe there's refugees to sponsor. Maybe there's a soup kitchen we can help. I don't know. Maybe there's something we've never even dreamed of yet that will fall right at our doorstep. And if we're not looking at the ground in fear, we will pick it up, find a partner, and move on it. And even better than church partnerships are partnerships with other nonprofits and other agencies that are serving the world. We don't have to invent the wheel. We don't have to decide exactly what the world needs. We need to find some other people who are doing it and not take it and drown it in a committee of the United Church of Canada. We want to squeeze the life out of mission, put it through a committee. They're the tents that we love. Partnership. Partnership is what discipleship looks like for us in the coming weeks and months. It strains us, it pulls us, it goads us, it calls us to look outward, out from ourselves, into a world that needs us. Sounds like a good way to move into Lent. Lift up your eyes. Don't be afraid. Lift up your eyes. Come with me down the mountain. We've got stuff to do. May it be so. Amen.